Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves quite a show, as we have a lot to get into in the world of SoCal sports, such as CBU Women's Hoops winning another big game and clinching a share of the WAC Conference title. I also have a little guest who will help me out there in that regard, as they have another big showdown tomorrow when they take on Grand Canyon. Also, how about USC and UCLA Women's Hoops make it all the way to the semifinals, and, funny enough, they get to face one another in the semifinals tonight. How did the Bruins and the women of Troy get all the way to the semifinals, and what can we expect from that matchup? Also, the Lakers disappointed as they lost to the Sacramento Kings after they led by as many as 19, which is very annoying. And LAFC laid a goose egg against Real Salt Lake, but the Galaxy wound up winning a big-time game against the San Jose Quakes, so there's that right there. Also, San Diego State men's basketball loses a tough one against New Mexico State. The one seed is pretty much out of the question, but can the Aztecs bounce back otherwise? All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Friday afternoon, Friday morning, Friday evening, Friday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 171 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first, we actually have ourselves a special guest. Yes, it's been a hot minute since the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has had a guest. And my guest is actually a former guest on Set Point. He is a contributor to WACHoopsNation, doing an excellent job of covering the Western Athletic Conference on the men's basketball side and on the women's basketball side. And he's also a senior writer for Inland Empire Sports. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming back to IE Sports Radio, the one, the only, Mr. Derryl Trujillo. How you doing, Derryl?
Hey, Teran. Just enjoying some championship week hoops on a Friday while getting ready to chat with you. It's an off day in the WAC with our final games on Saturday, and WAC Vegas just a few days away.
Absolutely, and thank you for taking time out of your day to come on. So without any further delay, let us begin. But just to make sure that the feds aren't watching, or just in case the feds are watching, these are the thoughts and opinions of myself, Teran Rodriguez, and of Derryl Trujillo, and not the thoughts and opinions of Inland Empire Sports or WACHoopsNation or any third or fourth party organizations. But with all that said and done, Derryl, I know you obviously were a guest on my other show, Set Point, but tell us what you do when it comes to WACHoopsNation, and tell everyone who's a first-time listener of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show what you do.
I'm a contributor to WACHoopsNation. I help cover the women's side of the Western Athletic Conference in basketball. For those listeners who aren't familiar with the WAC, we're a conference with 11 schools in 5 states and 3 different time zones. So it can get a little bit hairy, but we do it. We love it. We love our teams. We love our coaches, and that's why we do it. I'll be in Vegas for the tournament next week as we crown our NCAA tournament representatives on both the men's and the women's sides at the Orleans Arena. We actually pick it up on Wednesday right after the WCC tournament finishes.
Excellent. And I just got to say, you do a fantastic job in covering all of WAC Hoops on the women's side. And I'm sorry if I said it was on the men's and women's side, so it's just on the women's side, so my apologies. But you do a fantastic job in covering the WAC and women's basketball.
Thank you. Our editor, Kyle McDonald, does most of the legwork on the men's side. He's basically a one-man army on that department, but he does a great job. Visit our website, WACHoopsDigest.com, WACHoopsNation.substack.com for all your WAC Hoops content.
Awesome. All right, so let's discuss a little CBU women's hoops, or California Baptist University. All right, so the Lady Lancers, or the Lancers, have had such a fantastic season. They obviously pulled off a big win over UT Arlington. In your time of seeing CBU women's hoops this season, what can we all expect from CBU women's hoops going into tomorrow's game and into the tournament?
Well, what you can expect is an offense that likes to get up and down the floor, that shares the basketball, and is unselfish about it. The Lancers had 28 assists on 31 made field goals last night. And that's the norm. They share the ball. They love sharing the ball. And they can score points with the best of them. This is an offense on the year that is top 20 nationally with a top 15 leading scorer in Chloe Webb. That is the likely WAC player of the year. We'll find out when the coaches vote on, I want to say it's Monday, before we all head to Vegas. But this is a CBU team that people need to watch. The GCU game Saturday, GCU's got something to play for in that game, and in a way, so do the Lancers, just to keep momentum going. With a GCU win, the Lopes, under fourth-year head coach Molly Miller, would force a tie for the regular season title. It would be the first regular season championship for GCU in the Division I era. But the Lancers would still have the 1 seed to WAC Vegas and the double bye to Friday's semifinal. And, any games you can take out of tournament play at this time of the year when you're a team that's at the top of your conference, that's huge. That double bye is huge.
Excellent breakdown right there. And yes, I totally agree. I think Chloe Webb will probably be player of the year. And honestly, GCU does have something to play for. And they are such a talented team. But so is CBU over the past few years. Like last year, they won, I think it was like the WCIT, and then the year before, they went undefeated in the regular season and made it all the way to the quarterfinals in the WNIT. So tell me, in all of your years of covering CBU women's basketball, what have been some of your favorite memories covering the team?
I go back to the COVID year. The first time that Molly Miller brought a GCU team here, it took overtime for CBU to get through them. And even though it was a very quiet event center, the intensity from the two teams just filled the place with a noise equivalent to what a crowd would have brought that day. I would say watching the Lancers escape SFA and Nacogdoches last Thursday from here in Southern California on the ESPN Plus feed, that's up there. I would say, watching the Lancers beat Stephen F. Austin, a perennial mid-major power, here in Riverside by 22 at home in early January. But just seeing the way this team has responded through injuries and about 4 or 5 different lineups that Jared Olson has had to throw out there this year because of injuries and illness and different things, it's really been impressive to watch. The Lancers have been down Chloe Lemon, a freshman averaging about 12 points a game since the start of the new year, well, the tail end of January. And they were down a second starter in Grace Schmidt, a second-team All-WAC selection since basically Christmas. Schmidt underwent knee surgery but was averaging 12.1 points per game at the time. That's 24 points out of the Lancers offense that have been missing and have been other players have done a really good job of spreading those points around. Kinsley Barrington and Nene Calhoun have most notably done a nice job of picking up that slack offensively. So has Felipe Barros. This is just an offense that 1 through 5 is just a challenge to guard.
Awesome, and that's pretty darn amazing if you ask me. You know, something else that caught my eye when it came to CBU women's hoops is that they're undefeated at home. What is it like for a team to be undefeated at home, and how impressive is that feat in your mind?
It's impressive. I mean, Jared Olson, when he schedules, does not shy away from playing the best of the best when it comes to mid-majors. I mean, UTEP, a WNIT team last year that they beat in overtime in, I think it was like the third week of the year. Long Beach State, another WNIT team. Mm-hmm. Portland, a team that represented the WCC in the NCAA tournament last year. So you can tell by the teams he's able to get to come into the event center that he's not afraid to schedule, and schedule tough. And that really helps, you know, the team down the road. I mean, that's the kind of thing, you know, those kind of wins are what prepare you to go to Nacogdoches and beat a Stephen F. Austin. They're what prepare you for an overtime game at Utah Valley or an overtime game at Abilene Christian. And those are the games where a team early on, albeit that still have a lot of returners, found out what they were made of this year.
And yeah, I'm also seeing that CBU also defeated San Diego State, which is a pretty solid team. Portland, I think, is pretty solid in the West Coast Conference. They finished third, which is pretty solid. I mean, it's not the greatest, but still. I totally agree with you. I think CBU has had themselves a great season. They scheduled really well. And I'll just say, I want to say that if it weren't for USC and UCLA, I think they could probably be one of the top hierarchy teams in Southern California women's Division I college basketball. Don't you think?
I mean, that's a reasonable argument to make. I mean, in their history, the Lancers have played with and hung with Pac-12 teams. You go back to, it was the year before the COVID year. The Lancers were playing Stanford in Canada. I can't remember the name of the tournament, but it was in Canada. And they went stride for stride with Tara Vanderveer's Stanford Cardinal for 40 minutes before losing. Mm-hmm. And in talking to Jared Olson a couple of years back, he kind of pointed to that moment as the moment when he realized that the Lancers belonged in Division I. And then, you know, obviously winning the WAC Tournament the next year in the COVID year, winning the WBI, you know, making it to the postseason 4 out of 5 Division I seasons because they were WNIT eligible during the transition. This is a Lancer program that has proven that they've belonged in Division I, and now it's time to take the next step and make it to the NCAA tournament.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I definitely want to see that happen, just because that was really bogus that they are still in that transition limbo from Division II up to Division I. So I really think that CBU definitely has a good shot. I saw earlier in the week that someone had CBU projected as a 14 seed to take on Oregon State, which kind of goes back to you talking about Pac-12 teams. Have you seen a little bit of the Pac-12 outside of like maybe USC and UCLA? And if so, what could we expect if CBU takes on Oregon State?
I haven't seen Oregon State this year. I don't watch a lot of the Pac-12. It's hard enough just keeping track of one conference and then covering all this other stuff I do for high schools.
Right.
But the Pac-12, Utah Tech, a transitioning team in the WAC, did beat Oregon earlier this year in the Burns Arena. Yes, that's right. A WAC team did get a home game against the Power 5. Utah Tech was able to get 2 home games as part of the Trailblazer Classic that they put together. And in that win, Utah Tech, which is very similar to CBU in the style that they run offensively, I want to say it was like 20-some three-pointers against Kelly Graves' Oregon team. But for the Lancers to beat a Power 5, just speaking in generalities, they're going to have to hit threes. and they're going to have to be, physical in the post, limit second chance opportunities. All those little things that you have to do against WAC teams, you're going to have to do against the Power 5, but at a higher level.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, yeah, those Pac-12 teams are definitely not to be played with. And the Pac-12 as a whole was just quite astounding. Like, even the teams that have been eliminated, like Utah, Colorado, those teams I still can see getting into the NCAA tournament. But circling back to the CBU women's hoops, they will be playing Grand Canyon tomorrow. What could we expect from that matchup, and how big... you obviously talked about how big it is for Grand Canyon, but what does CBU have to do to get that win, and who are some X factors?
When you play a Molly Miller defense, they're going to try to slow you down, make you grind it out, and grind out possessions. GCU was one of only, I think, 3 teams this year to hold the Lancers under 75 at home. The Lancers won 71-65. It was like 3 weeks ago, at the end of February.
Yep.
So, expect a lower scoring, grinded out type of game. But if CBU can establish the run, get it into transition, and get that game into the 80s, towards the 80s, they've got a really good shot at winning that game. Phoenix is a really tough place to play. Especially turning around, less than 12 hours later, hopping on a bus and heading to Global Credit Union Arena with a GCU team that has had a week to prepare for this game, and a GCU team that is fired up for this game because they let a 15-point lead in Nacogdoches get away from them last Saturday. Otherwise, this would have been winner take all for the WAC regular season title.
Yeah, I was very surprised that GCU wound up losing that one to Stephen F. Austin. But Stephen F. Austin is always a solid team, so I'm not too surprised, but I was surprised at the lead unfortunately slipping through the fingers and whatnot. But all in all, do you see possibly both CBU and GCU getting into the NCAA tournament, or is it just going to be winner from the tournament wins their way to the NCAA tournament?
Sadly, there's no way that the WAC gets a second team to the NCAA tournament. The resumes aren't strong enough. The conference depth the ranking isn't high enough. According to WarrenNolan.com, the WAC is 25th out of 33 conferences in Division I. That's just not. Those kinds of numbers aren't going to get it done. What will happen, though, is there's a 4th women's basketball postseason tournament this year.
Oh.
So it's called the WBIT. It's operated by the NCAA in addition to the NCAA tournament. So here's what happens. The WAC tournament champion will get the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
The next highest team not qualified for the NCAA tournament will earn the spot to the WBIT. CBU, as the regular season champion, if they were to win it outright, would be in that WBIT spot. And I believe the Lancers would be in that spot either way, qualified for the WBIT based on the resume seeding system, if they were to share the regular season championship with an unfortunate loss at GCU on Saturday afternoon. So either way, it looks the Lancers will be in some form of postseason tournament. And then you have the WNIT, the traditional WNIT, which used to get the regular season auto bid from each conference. They'll still get the auto bid, but they'll get the team that is not qualified for the NCAA tournament, not qualified for the WBIT, so they'll get that third representative to the WNIT as their auto bid. And then you have the CBI, which is what CBU won last year in Transylvania, Kentucky. This year's CBI is 8 teams bracket play in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Got it. So it was the CBI. So I think I said something else. So my apologies. So CBI. All right. So now we're talking about CBU women's basketball with Derryl Trujillo of WACHoopsNation. So I talked about CBU women's basketball's wins, but unfortunately they suffered a couple losses in WAC play as they fell in overtime to the likes of Utah Valley, and I think it was it Stephen F. Austin or Tarleton?
No, it was Abilene Christian on one of those Texas trips.
Okay, my bad. So yeah, Abilene.
But those were both very high-scoring games. Abilene Christian is one of the nation's better offensive teams. Peyton Holt, a freshman, has been lighting it up this year, and is a candidate for Newcomer of the Year. 3 Newcomer of the Week selections, tied with Chloe Lemon, leading the Wildcats in scoring as a freshman. They're in the WAC tournament as the 6th seed. They can't move up, they can't move down based on what happened Saturday. But Abilene Christian has done some really good things down the stretch to get into the tournament. Utah Valley, you want to talk? Okay, if we have time to delve into this race for 8th in the WAC, it involves Utah Valley, and it's insane. So we have 2 teams at 6 and 13 in Seattle U and Tarleton State. And Tarleton State, even though they are a transitioning program, just like CBU 4 years ago, the Texans are eligible for WAC tournament play this year. The winner of that Seattle U Tarleton game should get into the WAC tournament. And there are 3 teams at 5 and 14. So you got 5 teams separated by a game going into the last day of the regular season, fighting for 2 spots.
Yeah, I'm just now looking at the standings, and honestly, that is very wild if you ask me. I think that's absolutely crazy for that final spot. And just to confirm, only the top 8 teams advance to the WAC tournament. It's not like the Pac-12 tournament where everyone gets in, right? Or how's that work?
That's correct. Yeah, we used to do it where everybody went, but now it's just the top 8 with the ladder bracket system. Single buys to the 3rd and 4th place finishers, the regular 3rd and 4th place seeds. Double buys to the 1st and 2nd seeds.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, those 5 teams are fighting for 2 spots on Wednesday afternoon, playing at noon and 2:30.
Yep, it's basically a fight to the finish. It just goes to show that any team, I pretty much said it on X, formerly known as Twitter, via SoCal Supreme Sports Show, that any team can beat any team in the WAC conference. And as you said, it's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. And you look at the teams that in that race, Seattle's won 6 games in WAC play. They're 6 and 22, so all 6 of their wins have come in conference play, and I think they've won 4 in a row, 5 in a row, something like
3
that.
3 in a row.
4 out of 6 is what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Under first-year head coach Skylar Young, they've been competitive in most of their games. This is a Seattle team we thought 3 weeks ago was going to be in the spot where they missed Black Vegas, but here they are, a win away. Southern Utah last night had a 28-point lead at one point against Stephen F. Austin. That's right, I said a 28-point lead in the AFAC.
Mm-hmm.
But they let the Lady Jacks off the hook, and a win there would have put them into that tie at 6 wins. And Southern Utah now has to play UTRGV, another team in that 5 and 14 tie, on Saturday, with a big game, and try to shake that loss off and see if they can't get into WAC Vegas. It's been a tough year for Tracy Mason's bunch. They've competed well, they've fought hard, but they still find themselves on the outside looking in as we come to the last day of the regular season.
Yeah, and that's rather fascinating if you ask me. And again, it just goes to show that any team in any conference can beat one another. And I totally agree with Seattle. Like Seattle, I remember they were pretty much at the bottom of the conference thing, but now they've pretty much risen to pretty much having a chance to possibly, hence the word possibly, make it into the WAC tournament. But jumping back to CBU, they also had another loss to Louisiana Tech, which I don't know if you saw that one, but I was just perplexed by this loss.
So that was an odd loss. That was a game that the Lancers had to find to make it, well, actually, no, that was part of the WAC USA scheduling initiative. Those games were played during the non-conference part of the slate, right around the holidays. So, and it was a perplexing loss, yes. But Louisiana Tech is a solid Conference USA program. They've been among the standard bearers in mid-major women's basketball. But I don't think any of us expected CBU to lose that badly in at Louisiana Tech. But those are the kinds of losses that a team can say, look, we're better than this, and propel you forward to bigger things. I mean, Louisiana Tech is at the top half of Conference USA. They've done some really good things historically, and Brooke Storer has done a really good job with that program since coming in. I don't know if you remember, Teran, but Pat Summitt's son, Tyler, the late Pat Summitt's son, Tyler, had that job before Storer. Mm-hmm. He had an affair with a player and ended up resigning. Storer came in, stabilized the program, and they're making inroads now in Conference USA.
Okay, well, that's good perspective right there in regards to that Louisiana Tech loss, because I saw their record right now. It's like, but now that you've clarified everything, that definitely makes the loss a little bit less painful. So,
I've seen Louisiana Tech play on ESPN Plus a couple of times. They scared the pants off Middle Tennessee State at home in the Conference USA opener. They're not a bad team.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah. So, jumping back to CBU, has there been any players that you've seen regarding their team that have basically not gotten a whole lot of praise, or anyone that has basically been making some sort of noise and whatnot?
I mean, we're gonna have to look at the All-WAC voting when it comes out on Monday to answer, or I believe it's Monday, to answer that question. I mean, outside of the obvious, Chloe Webb is a likely preseason player of the year candidate. There's spots. If there were more spots on the All-WAC team, I could easily see 3 or 4 Lancers on an All-WAC team. Nene Calhoun has definitely done enough to be on an All-WAC team so far. 14.7 assists last night. Kinsley Barrington has done enough to be on an All-WAC team, I think. 23 points last night, a career night. And she's really had to pick up the scoring down low in the absence of Grace Schmidt. Cases to be made for Philippa Barros and Anaya Tua to be on All-WAC teams. But the way the WAC does things, it's 8 first-teamers, 8 second-teamers, and the player of the year is the automatic first-team selection for whoever gets that player of the year nod. So, different conferences have different formats with their all-conference awards. That's the format the WAC uses. Obviously, Chloe Lemon, I put her on my all-WAC team, even though she's missed a bunch of time. Will they vote her newcomer of the year? We'll find out Monday. I think Gia Adams wins that award from UT Arlington. She's just been on fire the last few weeks. 30 points last night, single-handedly keeping UT Arlington from getting blown out in that game. And Adams won 4 straight Newcomer of the Week awards during one stretch of the season. So, for me, Gia Adams is the Newcomer of the Year. We'll see what the coaches vote. But she's just been impressive this last month and a half.
And you mentioned Barrington, Calhoun, and Webb. Those 3 are seniors. What can you say about the CBU future overall, and what is their future obviously looking good for next season? Because I see they've got a mixture of talent from juniors, sophomores, and even some freshmen.
Yeah, I mean, this is a CBU team that's in a spot, depending on what happens in the portal, to do some good things again next year. I mean, losing, obviously, Kinsley, Chloe, and Annie Calhoun will hurt, but Anaya Tua should return. Barros has eligibility. Miss Bosch Duran, Emily Sewell, Sydney White. They should get Grace Schmidt back from injury. Chloe Lemon, too. There's a core here for Jared Olson to build around going into 24-25. And obviously, when you go out on that recruiting trail, hanging banners in the rafters of the Fowler Event Center doesn't hurt much either.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, any sort of postseason trophy is definitely a success. You don't give the trophy back, to quote one of my good friends, but yeah, I think CBU, like I mentioned, they're probably the third best team in Southern California Division I college women's basketball, right behind USC and UCLA. Not to knock the other teams, not trying to disrespect any of the other teams, but CBU has had fantastic seasons and fantastic success, whether it's in the regular season where they ran the table the post-COVID year or the COVID year, or last year when they wound up winning that postseason tournament. So all in all, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what CBU women's hoops can do down the stretch, just because they deserve the success and recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we're talking about Southern California hoops. I'm a mid-major guy myself. I have to give a lot of credit to UC Riverside. Highlanders are 17-12, third place, tied for third in the Big West. Brad Langston, who has been filling in for Nicole Powell as the head coach of the Highlanders. I think Brad Langston, if he does not stay at UC Riverside, has earned an opportunity to interview for another job. Just where the Highlanders were voted in the preseason poll, I think it was like 7th or 8th, to be third in the Big West, 4 games behind Hawaii, but just 3 behind UCI. That's really impressive.
Indeed it is, and yeah, I kind of overlooked that, but that is a very impressive feat, and the Big West is kind of, I wouldn't say a logjam. Obviously, you have your Hawaii, who obviously won the conference. UC Irvine is also pretty good. They won the conference last year in the regular season. And then UC Riverside, I think they've definitely made a great jump. I know we were talking mainly CBU women's hoops, but UC Riverside is in SoCal, and they deserve a little recognition as well. They close out the regular season against UC Santa Barbara, which that could be rather interesting just because third place is still up for grabs because they're tied with Cal Poly and UC Davis. So if you can, talk to me about a little bit more about UC Riverside women's hoops.
Right. Okay, so it's been a struggle since John Margaritis, the longtime coach of the Highlanders, who guided them to so much success, departed the program as a result of multiple university investigations. Ciaran Bell was the interim for a year. And then they hired Nicole Powell from GCU, who was Molly Miller's predecessor. Mm-hmm. At GCU, Powell was 8 games under 500. She was 38 and 46 or somewhere in that ballpark in her time in Phoenix. And when she was hired during the pandemic, I was really curious to see what was going to happen. It might have taken a couple of years, but it seems like the Highlanders have found footing, albeit with one of her top assistants running the show. Powell has missed the last 7 games of last year and has not coached a game this year. UCR is being very tight-lipped about why that is. But again, I say Brad Langston has earned the right to interview for a head coaching job if he wants to leave UC Riverside, because of the Highlanders' performance this year.
Excellent. That's great perspective from the UC Riverside side. And then jumping back to CBU, obviously you mentioned Jared Allen and how he's built a great program at CBU. What have been some interactions with you and Jared, and how much of a great relationship do you have with him?
He's just become one of my favorite coaches to interview, whether it's coach speak or, just telling us a story about, the team. Like last night, he mentioned that, how did he phrase it? When he sees any one of these players going off for career nights, he's not surprised because this team is so unselfish, and he's loved coaching this team, and he's just so happy to see them succeed and do the things that they've done. I think it's 4 straight 20-win seasons. But there was one question in particular from last night's post game that I want to share. Mm-hmm. I asked, remember during the COVID year that we were playing doubleheaders, no fans in gyms, right?
Right.
All those funky things that were associated with COVID. So I asked him about, does this feel like the first time because of how different everything felt with COVID? And he really did a nice job of contrasting the two championship experiences of championship night, right? He was like, they were both, really exciting and really cool, but they were cool for different reasons. And he went on and talked about how the first time in 2021, it was just a really small, intimate gathering at the end of that second GCU game, on the back end of that doubleheader weekend. It was just the players he had at the time, the staff that was at CBU at the time. And last night, before a crowd of nearly 1,200, he was like, it's really cool to see the event center this packed, and just to reward the best fan base in America with another conference championship.
Awesome, and I definitely love that he mentioned that it's the best fan base in America. I definitely think that it's definitely one of them, and I definitely think that he holds true to his word, and I'm glad he's done such an excellent job. And here's hoping Jared Allen can continue.
Olsen.
Or Olsen. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say Allen? I said Olsen. Jared Olsen can continue to do such a great job with the Lancers. Anything else you want to add regarding CBU women's hoops? And also, CBU women's hoops wins the WAC tournament if they blank. That's my question to you.
If the ball keeps moving, if they keep hitting threes at the rate they're hitting, and they can stay out of foul trouble for 2 games, they'll win the WAC tournament.
Got it. And as you mentioned, they're top 20 nationally in terms of scoring, in terms of like maybe points per game. And I think that's rather impressive. And that's why I really want them to get the recognition that they deserve, just because they're so successful. And do you know how tough it is to go undefeated in the regular season? There's a gigantic target on your back. And the fact that they went undefeated a couple seasons ago, and last year they had their postseason tournament success, it just goes to show that this team deserves the recognition. They deserve the love, and that's why I'm out here trying to give the love. And you're doing such an outstanding job with WACHoopsNation, is trying to give the CBU women's hoops the love that they deserve.
Yeah, and it's good to see. I grew up a mid-major guy. I grew up with the Elena Deladon University of Delaware team. That Delaware team that made it to the Sweet 16 a few years ago. Before losing to Kentucky. I can still remember Matt Janis, the voice of the University of Delaware, calling them across the finish line when they beat North Carolina and West Virginia in Newark, Delaware, when we were starting to use campus sites as first-round venues. I can still remember that. That's what drew me to women's basketball in the mid-major games specifically. And just covering the WAC, seeing the parity from up and down. I mean, who would have thunk that race for 8th a month ago would have been what it is right now? I mean, that's what we live for as college basketball analysts and writers.
Indeed, because once you get in that tournament, anything can happen. So, all right, that is pretty much going to do it for this CBU Women's Hoops segment with you, Derryl, unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, that'll do it.
Yep, we managed to knock out a nice little 35-minute session. Where can all these people find your work, and where can all these people find you on social media regarding CBU Women's Hoops?
I'm at Derryl, DERRYL, _golfer on Twitter. I don't really post on Instagram all that much. Mm-hmm. It's just there, but it's Derryl Trujillo on Instagram. And then for our content, we post a once weekly newsletter at WACHoopsNation.substack.com. We'll do a live post-game show after Saturday's games, probably around I would guess, 8 o'clock hour out here, 8:30, depending on what time that last men's game finishes.
Mm-hmm.
And then game stories, other stuff we work on is at WACHoopsDigest.com. So my game story from last night is at WACHoopsDigest.com.
Definitely go check all that out, and definitely check out all of Derryl Trujillo's work. Derryl, if you could hold so I can give you a proper goodbye, that would be awesome. We're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we've got some more college hoops news, got a little Los Angeles Rams news, got some NBA to talk about, some MLS, some NHL, and much more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland, previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. From where we cover the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU, we cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey there, sports fans. Are you looking for a sports show that maybe isn't 100% about sports?
Then you might want to check out the Sports Couple Perspectives right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Most sports shows cover only scores and stats, and while we're not opposed to that, we dig a little deeper into sports issues and some of the hottest topics in athletics.
In addition to sports, we take a journey through my neck of the woods, pop culture, with movie reviews of both sports and non-sports films.
Speaking of pop culture, make sure to participate in our game nights, where we quiz each other on our specialties, and you, the listeners, can win IE Sports Radio apparel.
We always have a great time learning more about each other's worlds, one show at a time.
So join us each week on the Sports Couple Perspectives, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with the second half of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Huge shout out and thank you once again to Derryl Trujillo of WACHoopsNation and Inland Empire Sports. I definitely do appreciate him coming on today's show, and it's the first time he's been a guest on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. He's been on a guest on Set Point, but we decided to basically talk a little CBU women's hoops. And this was yesterday where he's like, can we talk some CBU women's hoops? It's like, sure. If you're available, you're welcome to come on. So thank you once again to Derryl Trujillo. Much appreciated that he came on. And also thank you to those that listened in, as Patty Bax was in the chat room. She says, fantastic interview, Teran. I appreciate that, Patty. Ralph Calise, Larry B, Mike Pat, and now Jen B popped into the chat room. So I appreciate y'all popping in. All right, let's get on into that second half. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be live without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. We also have a Facebook page. All you have to do is type in the word IE, then sports, and radio in the search bar, like us, and then that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. And we have ourselves a website, www.iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our page dedicated to each podcast, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, like Derryl Trujillo, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit planetjerky.net and place your order. In addition, prices are slashed for the time being, and if you order $50 or more worth of an order on planetjerky.net, you'll get the shipping for free! Once again, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. They can be found on Instagram at Planet Jerky. And the second sponsor is Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch. Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or friend and you want to add their smile when they receive it. If that's the case, then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts is for you. Their motto is, you bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. Follow them on Instagram at @sealthedeal_wax stamps. That's on Instagram. And the way you can follow the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on social media is at SoCal Show ISR on X, formerly known as Twitter. And you can follow me, Teran Rodriguez, mainly on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Teran Rodriguez1. And let's get on into that second half of the show. So there's a little NFL news to discuss, as first and foremost we have the Rams, as they actually made a big splash in terms of re-signing a player, as they re-signed Kevin Dotson to a new deal. As well, he now has a new deal with the Rams. It is a 3-year deal worth $48 million, and this is courtesy of Bleacher Report. And that's big right there for the Rams, because you got to have your O-line protecting your quarterback at all times, especially since Matthew Stafford is getting up there in age. So getting Kevin Dotson back was such a huge priority for the Rams this season, and I'm glad they re-signed him to a 3-year deal. So I still think the Rams should maybe draft an O-lineman. If not, they should draft a corner. I think corner is maybe their best decision in terms of trying to, build up their defense and try to get back from what they were before Jalen Ramsey headed out. So there's that right there. So good job to the Rams on that regard. Also, the Chargers managed to re-sign one of their tackles, and as well as Cameron Dicker, their kicker, because they were pending free agents and they were tendered. And thankfully, the Chargers managed to keep hold of their tackle and the kicker, Cameron Dicker. So there's that in regards to a little NFL news right there. And I wanted to say that the Rams released a mock draft, or someone released a mock draft regarding the Rams, which would be nice, but unfortunately that is not the case, and it is what it is. I've basically talked a lot about the Rams and their mock drafts, as well as the Chargers in their mock drafts. So all in all, that's going to do it a little bit for the Rams, and as well as the Chargers, and there's not really too much college football news, as it's been quiet around the forefront. But I want to say the USC football managed to hire someone new, and it's their new running backs coach. They have a new running backs coach, and they'll also have practice days on March 30th and April 6th, which is awesome. So their new running backs coach and their run game coordinator is Anthony Jones Jr., which he was named the running backs coach and run game coordinator 3 days ago. So this was on Monday, which I think is pretty awesome. So that would actually mean he was named the coordinator 4 days ago. So technically 4 days ago, but it hasn't been a full 3 days. Regardless, that's your new running backs coach and run game coordinator, which I think is pretty awesome. It's obviously going to be tough to replace the previous one, but I could rock with this. I definitely think Anthony Jones Jr. can definitely do wonders for the run game for USC. I mean, it can't get any worse, because it was mainly just throw the ball with obviously Caleb Williams and a little bit of Miller Moss. And I know we had Caleb Williams basically just run the ball a little bit, but now that USC has a better running backs coach and run game coordinator, I think USC can definitely do wonders. And he was part of the 2023 Horned Frogs team that went 5-7, but they were ranked 11th in the nation in total offense with 466 yards. And they had Imani Bailey 20th in the nation in rushing yards with 1,209. So Jones also worked with Garrett Riley and the TCU offensive coordinator to help the Horned Frogs of TCU make it to the national championship, which obviously did not result in anything happy, but I digress. He also tutored Kendre Miller, who was a third-round selection by the New Orleans Saints and earned the 2022 first-team All-Big 12 honors, he was also a Doak Award semifinalist. And he was also selected for the AFCA 35 Under 35 Leadership Institute and whatnot. So, yeah, I think this is a good hire. I'm not going to go down the list of of all of his accolades, but I definitely think Anthony Jones Jr. can do wonders for USC's run game. Like I said, it cannot be any worse than what we have, but I digress. So, just released now, the 2024 2024 compensatory draft selections were just released. So in the third round, the Rams get a selection from 35 all the way through 98, which I think is cool. So I think it's a selection 35 and 98. So the Rams get 2 third-round picks, which I think is nice. And then they also get a 6th-round pick. They get pick number 209, and I'm now just realizing the Rams get a pick from. They pick 98th in that third round, and then no. I'm sorry. So it's picks 35 through 98 in round 3, and then round 6 it's pick 209 for the Rams, and then they also get pick 213 in round 6, and then the Chargers get pick 253, and then the Rams get pick 254. So this is according to the 2024 compensatory draft selections, which was just released courtesy of Adam Schefter. So first and foremost, I can't pronounce compensatory. Second of all, this whole thing looks rather foreign if you ask me, but I digress. But all in all, it's good that the Rams get 4 compensatory draft selections this year. It's also good to see the Chargers get a compensatory pick. However, that pick comes all the way down in round 7. At least for the Rams, they get a pick in round 3. And they also get 3 in round 6, and then they also get 1 in round 7 right behind the Chargers. So there's that right there. All right, but that is going to do it for all of the compensatory picks right there, and everything NFL news, and everything football news in that regard as well. All right, so let's move on to a little bit of NBA action, just because, well, we got to talk a little about it, and sadly, we've got some semi-bad news regarding the Lakers, and man, I really don't want to, but I really don't want to talk about the Lakers and how they basically stunk up the joint, but we got to rip the Band-Aid off one way or another. So, talking about the Lakers right now. So, the Lakers continue to disappoint, even though they have sometimes they have such great wins, but then they back that up with some hideous losses. So this past Wednesday, they lost to the Sacramento Kings 130-120. That's not the disappointing part of the loss. Them losing is not disappointing. What's disappointing is that the Lakers actually led by as many as 19 in the first half, and then they basically just allowed the Kings to take charge and lead by over 10 by halftime. And they also allowed De'Aaron Fox to score 44 points. That is unacceptable right there. The good news is for the Lakers that they actually managed to get a very big win on Monday. They took down the Oklahoma City Thunder 116-104. I was rather impressed by this, and I kind of forgot, not going to lie, I kind of forgot the Lakers played the Thunder, but that's because I do set point on Mondays. So that's a good win for the Lakers. The Thunder are certainly no pushover in terms of the Western Conference, especially owning the second best record in the West and the third best record overall. On Saturday, the Lakers also lost to the Denver Nuggets, which was rather clammy, if you ask me. It was kind of a bittersweet moment as the Lakers lost 124-114. However, LeBron James surpassed 40,000 points, which I thought was awesome sauce, and I am very happy that the Lakers the Lakers star managed to surpass that. And I'm not sure if that record will ever get broken, but I will just say this. We got to appreciate LeBron James as much as we can. Yes, I am more of a Kobe guy and obviously an MJ guy, but LeBron is going to be basically up there in terms of one of the GOATs. Obviously, he'll need to win 6 rings to basically surpass or to equal MJ, but he is definitely shattering barriers, and again, this is year 20 for him. Will he be able to play with his son by the time he declares for the NBA draft? That all depends. But for right now, we are appreciating greatness regarding LeBron James. And I, as a Laker fan, can't be more grateful that he's on the Lakers. So tonight, the Lakers are back in action as they play the Milwaukee Bucks. Then Sunday, they also host the Timberwolves. Both those games are going to be on ESPN. Their next 3 games are on ESPN. Oh my God. And their next 2 games, like I mentioned, they're at home. But next Wednesday, the Lakers head down to Sacktown to take on Sacramento. Then Saturday, the Lakers will host the Golden State Warriors, which is definitely going to be a barn burner right there. And that's going to be important just because the Lakers and Warriors are 9-10 regarding the final spot of the play-in round or play-in tournament. So any win that the Lakers can get is definitely going to pay dividends. And a win over the Kings would not be too bad either because the Lakers are 3 games back of Sacramento. And playing a play-in game at home definitely benefits you. I mean, it definitely benefited the Lakers last year when they played the Timberwolves at home and then also playing the Warriors in Staples Center, now known as Crypto.com Arena. But I will just say the Lakers are definitely going to need to bring their A game, just because the Lakers are just such an off and on switch. One match or one game, they look like they're definitely a contender to have another run back to the not the NCAA tournament, the NBA finals or at least the conference finals. And then another game, they look like they don't belong in the tournament, let alone they don't belong in the playoffs altogether. And they'll probably go no farther than round 1, if not the play-in tournament. So I really want the Lakers to basically shatter the they stink barrier. So we'll see what happens. And then as for the Clippers, it seems like the Clippers are doing a whole lot better after they had that major collapse against the Lakers last time I was doing the show. So the Clippers wound up thumping the Wizards 140-115, taking away that W from the Wizards and replacing it with an L, because there ain't no W with the Washington Lizards. Then on Sunday, the Clippers pulled off a very big win over the Minnesota Timberwolves, beating them 89-88. But unfortunately, the turnaround was just too much on Monday as they wound up falling to the Milwaukee Bucks 113-106, which is unfortunate just because, well, it's a tough turnaround. You go from Timberwolves all the way to the Bucks on like less than 24 hours. Like, golly. And then Wednesday, the Clippers returned to action as they wound up beating the Houston Rockets 122-116. As the Clippers are back in action Saturday when they host the Chicago Bulls. And then Sunday, they'll still remain at home. They have another game as they take on the Milwaukee Bucks. Tuesday, they will be playing on national TV, or TNT, when they take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then next Thursday, they hit the road to the Windy City to take on the Chicago Bulls. And then next Friday, I guess I should also mention this, the Clippers hit the road to the Big Easy to take on the New Orleans Pelicans. So Clippers are kind of in the middle of the road when it comes to the Western Conference. They're certainly not going to fall anywhere probably below the 5-6 area, if not the play-in tournament range. But they're still 2 games back of Denver, and there's 3 games back of Minnesota. So all in all for the Clippers, they're still having a good season, and even though they did lose Russell Westbrook for quite a bit, I want to say it's like maybe, I think he has a wrist injury, but they haven't really given a diagnosis on how long he's going to be out. But the Clippers are going to definitely miss him. I feel his career kind of got revitalized with the Clippers after that horrible stint with the Lakers. And I will just say, I know it sucks that Russell Westbrook had himself a bad stint, but this is kind of the revival he needs. He and James Harden both. So we'll see what happens with the Clippers, and we'll see what happens with the Lakers, as I want to see the Lakers actually rise from the grave. All right, but that's going to do it for the NBA portion of the show. Jumping to a little MLS. So there was actually some breaking news while I did my interview with Derryl Trujillo. So this news comes out of LAFC, as they actually have inked a new deal with their star Dennis Bouanga, who is a Golden Boot winner. So he has a contract extension through to the 2028 season, which I think is awesome. I'm a big fan of Dennis Bouanga. He definitely is a great player, and the Golden Boot winner award speaks for itself. So I definitely think Dennis Bouanga getting a new deal with LAFC is going to help out LAFC in the long run, and honestly, it's going to definitely pay dividends. Unfortunately for LAFC, they kind of had such an awful weekend last week, as they wound up getting stomped on by Salt Lake 3-0. So that is certainly not ideal for LAFC, as they actually fell to 7th in the Western Conference. But they're back in action when they host Sporting KC, or Sporting KC. So LAFC still has a chance. It's still very early. They're only 2 matches in, and I will just say LAFC has a lot of time to basically right the ship. Now, as for the other team, well, I actually no, I don't want to go over who scored for Real Salt Lake, because they're not Southern California. So, jumping over to the Galaxy. The Galaxy, on the other hand, they headed down to Northern California to take on the San Jose Quakes, and they wound up beating the Quakes 3-1. So, realistically, this game actually wasn't all that close, as Joseph Paint Still managed to score the first goal of the game for the Galaxy, and then after that, Dejan Hovlicic scored in the 43rd minute. So suddenly it's 2-0 in favor of the Galaxy after one half. Then 3 minutes into the second half, Ricard Puig managed to score for the Galaxy, making it 3-0 in favor of the Galaxy. And San Jose managed to salvage a goal, avoiding the shutout in the 69th minute. Nice. As Preston Jude scored, and the Galaxy wound up winning 3-1, which is definitely an impressive win, especially since it's never easy to win on the road. And they had such a hideous tie, just because it would have been so great if the Galaxy had beaten Inter Miami, just so we could shut all those Lionel Messi fans up. So anyway, the Galaxy have actually jumped up to second place in the Western Conference. Yeah, I can't believe that either. There's no undefeated teams. Well, actually, no, there is. But there aren't any teams that have lost. But there aren't any teams that are like 2-0. Anyway, so the Galaxy are back in action Sunday when they head down to Music City, or the Music State, to take on... Well, actually, no, the Music City, to take on Nashville. So I think it's going to be a nice little matchup right there. Nashville SC, they have 2 ties, just like how, and they also, just like the Galaxy, they don't have any losses. And then after the Galaxy take on Nashville, they play St. Louis City SC. Oh God, I always forget their proper name, but they play St. Louis City SC the following week and whatnot. So there's that right there, and I'm just now seeing I'm seeing on the Galaxy schedule the new logo of the Seattle Sounders. That's a little iffy right there. Not Dum Dum of the Week worthy, but I digress. Alright, but that is that for the MLS in that regard. So jumping over to men's basketball. So I didn't talk a little college men's basketball with Derryl Trujillo. I didn't know he only covered NCAA, or he covered WAC hoops on the women's side, but I digress. So, starting off with USC and UCLA, which they both took on the Arizona schools, and for USC, we don't have too much to talk about with them. They beat Arizona State, and they've now won 2 in a row, and I think that's cool, but this is sad because, well, for starters, we're now seeing what USC could actually do instead of being the team that got stomped on, and that has been getting stomped on, or the team that blew a 17-point halftime lead to Long Beach State and wound up losing in overtime, just because we all saw the return of Bronny James after he suffered cardiac arrest and whatnot. So it's sad that USC is finally showing its true potential, but it's a case of too little too late, as, well, it's not the end of their season, but they are back in action when they host Arizona, number 5 Arizona, on Saturday at Galen Center. So that's going to be on ESPN. Again, I still feel a little clammy having to see USC play Arizona on ESPN, which we all know that Arizona is probably going to blow the doors off of USC, unless, of course, USC rests their starters. So regarding the Pac-12 tournament, it looks like USC could be playing UCLA in the Pac-12 tournament, because if I recall correctly, the top 4 seeds get a bye, and after that, it goes 5 versus 12. It's 5 versus 12, 6 versus 11, 10 versus 7, and then 8 versus 9, and so on and so forth. Unless I'm doing my math wrong, and I need to brush up on it. But yeah, it should be 5 versus 12, and so on and so forth. But UCLA, on the other hand, speaking of those gutty little Bruins, or should I say not so gutty little Bruins, they unfortunately lost to Arizona last night, 88 to 65, which pretty much locked up the Pac-12 conference title for Arizona. So, Wildcat fans, you're welcome. I'm glad UCLA continues their tragic season. I get it; they have a young team, but the postseason streak of 12 straight postseasons under Mick Cronin is kind of unfortunately going to be at risk, unless, of course, UCLA wins the Pac-12 tournament. Something else to make note of is that UCLA ain't getting no first-round bye in the Pac-12 tournament. That ship has sailed, unfortunately. But it is what it is. UCLA shouldn't have lost off of a tip-in against Utah, or they shouldn't have laid a goose egg against Washington and Washington State. So UCLA closes up its regular season, or the last part of their regular schedule, against Arizona State. And if UCLA wins and Utah loses, then UCLA will move up to number 5, and they'll get the honor of taking Oregon State on. I don't think USC can jump Stanford in the standings. I would be rather fascinated to see UCLA versus USC in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament. It'll basically be the land of tears. Lots of tears will be shed in that matchup. But I do look forward to seeing what UCLA and USC can do come the Pac-12 tournament. They're certainly not getting into the NCAA tournament unless they win the Pac-12 tournament. So this is the last year of the Pac-12 regarding USC. Well, last year of the Pac-12 entirely, just because there's not going to be a Pac-12, because Oregon State and Washington State are going to the West Coast Conference, and then everyone else is either going to the ACC, the Big 12, or the Big 10. So there's that right there. Jumping over to some Big West men's basketball, UC Irvine locked up the number 1 seed in the Big West Conference tournament, and they also locked up the Big West Conference regular season title as they beat Cal Poly quite nicely, 82-68 at the Bren Event Center. So UC Irvine is the number 1 seed, and like I said via the SoCal Supreme Sports Show X account, watch out for those little anteaters, or Russell Turner and the anteaters, as they went undefeated at home this year. So I got to give a huge shout out to them in that regard. That's pretty impressive, going 13-0 at the Bren Event Center. Kind of a tough place to win at. But anyway, UC Irvine closes off the regular season when they take on Cal State Fullerton on Saturday, and then they'll go from there. And then UC San Diego closes off its season entirely when they host lowly Cal Poly, which is actually going to be the final game of the regular season, or final game in his coaching career for John Smith. Because if you remember last episode, I talked about how he's not going to be returning as Cal Poly San Luis Obispo's men's basketball coach, just because Well, Cal Poly has a dreadful record. They are a whopping 4-27, and they are 0-19. I already talked about it, and yeah, I'm not gonna dive further into the rabbit hole of Cal Poly, but they have one last hurrah against UC San Diego. And UC San Diego basically has one last game of the regular season just because they are not eligible for the Big West Conference Tournament, and they are also not eligible for the NCAA tournament just because they're still in the Division 1 the Division 2 to Division 1 transfer window, kind of like what happened with CBU. So there you have it right there. All right, but that is going to do it in that regard right there for the Big West Conference in men's basketball. I want to say only the top 8 teams advanced to the tournament. So I imagine the cutoff is basically where CSUN is at, where they're the 8th, where they're the 8th team. I don't think Cal State Fullerton will be surpassing CSUN anytime soon, which is a bummer, but it is what it is, and yeah. So that's basically going to do it for the Big West Conference in men's basketball. So jumping over to the Mountain West Conference, I got to go with what's less painful. But between the West Coast Conference and the WAC Conference and San Diego State in the Mountain West Conference, well, San Diego State lost a tough one. It was actually I think I said to New Mexico, but it was to UNLV. They lost 62-58, which is just disgusting. So unfortunately, the number 1 seed of the Mountain West Conference tournament is out of the question, as well as the regular season title. But San Diego State I think they could surpass Boise State if they beat Boise State tomorrow. San Diego State is 2 games back of Utah State, but they're only 1 game back of UNLV, Boise State, and Nevada. I understand San Diego State had the tougher remaining games left to their schedule, but what I don't understand is how they laid such a goose egg, especially since, well, it was on the road, so I guess I can give them a little bit of a pass. But tonight they closed off the regular season against Boise State. Again, they need to build the momentum just because the Mountain West Conference Tournament is going to be a gauntlet, especially with the likes of Utah State leading the way. Nevada has surged. UNLV also pulling off that big win is huge. Boise State also big as well. So, and it's not just those teams. New Mexico and Colorado State are definitely up there in terms of contenders, as those teams have won 20-plus games. The thing about UNLV is that they only won 19 games. So I only say only because they probably could have a better record, but it is what it is. All right, but that's that for Mountain West Conference. Jumping over to the West Coast Conference. All right, so the West Coast Conference tournament has begun in men's basketball, and Pepperdine, well, they managed to pull off, a big win as they wound up beating Pacific 102-43. This game was so bad for Pacific that Pepperdine was up 56-9. 56-9 at halftime against Pacific. Pacific was so bad they put up 9 points in the first half. Now, obviously there's such thing as off nights, but how do you only put up 9 points? And you're trailing by 47 at halftime. And I can't even... it's just so perplexing on how much they lost by. It was 102-43, but you have to be some sort of bad to lose by that much. It's just... They lost by 59 points. This makes the Lakers' Game 6 loss to the Celtics back in 2008 look a whole lot less painful when they lost by 39 to the Celtics. Sorry if I have to bring that up, Lakers fans. But still, it was so bad that Pepperdine even tweeted out, so this is what being Gonzaga looks like. Because Gonzaga just kept blowing out teams after blowing out teams after blowing out teams. But let's be honest with ourselves, Pacific stinks. I don't even think they wound up winning a conference game this year, which it is what, yeah, they went 0-16, and Pepperdine managed to finish 5-11 along with their buddies LMU. Anyway, so going back to that was actually that was the first round for Pepperdine. So the second round will be against San Diego, which had a bye. So this conference tournament does things really weird. There's double byes, there's byes, and San Diego was the lucky one that got a bye into the second round. So there you have it right there. San Diego versus Pepperdine in round 2. Hopefully for either of those teams, they could make it to the semifinals. This is going to be played in Orleans Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. So there you have it right there. San Diego defeated Pacific last Saturday, 81-69, hence why Pacific had no conference wins. And then as for LMU, their season came to an end last Saturday when they lost to Portland 70-60. So, I'm sorry, their season didn't come to an end. Their season, regular season, was basically a sour one as they wound up losing to Portland 70-60. But guess who LMU plays in the second round of the West Coast Conference Tournament? You guessed it. They play Portland again. So I'm hoping LMU, for their sake, they are able to basically learn from that loss. I know LMU hasn't been great, as well as Pepperdine and San Diego. But if there's ever a time for LMU to actually, show up, I think it would be this time. Just because we're now, I would think that the first round of the tournament, of the West Coast Conference Tournament, it should basically be the play-in round. But I digress. But if there's ever a time for LMU to basically get it going, it has to be now. But we'll see what happens when it comes to LMU and Portland. I think LMU can definitely win, but it is what it is at this point. Like, they should at least be happy that they're not Pacific at this point. And it's interesting because Portland and LMU finished with identical records in conference. But then again, the entirety of the Southern California teams from the West Coast Conference stink. But I digress. Alright, but that's going to do it for the West Coast Conference. Last but certainly not least, we have the CBU men's hoops, which they host Grand Canyon this Saturday. If for some reason this plays out like the women's side of the spectrum does, then CBU is barely clinging on to that final spot in the WAC tournament, as only the top 8 teams go to the WAC tournament. And CBU is one game ahead of Utah Tech. So for CBU, they gotta win. They somehow gotta win, or they gotta hope that Utah Tech lays a fat goose egg against Stephen F. Austin. But Stephen F. Austin isn't really having, I wouldn't say they're having a bad year, but they're right ahead. They're just a little bit ahead of Utah Tech. So if anything, CBU has to get some help from Stephen F. Austin, because I do not see CBU defeating Grand Canyon. But it is what it is. All right, but that's that for CBU men's hoops. Jumping over to the women's side of things. All right, so I talked a little about USC and UCLA with Derryl Trujillo, but I will just say, diving on into the full depth of everything, USC and UCLA, well, they're now in the heart of the Pac-12 tournament, as both those teams managed to take down the Arizona schools. And in the quarterfinals, USC took down Arizona yesterday, 65-62. Now, I don't know what it is when it comes to Arizona giving USC a run for their money, but USC can't have this close call thing anymore. UCLA, on the other hand, they had the honor of playing Utah, where they beat the Utes 66-57. Now, USC was seeded third, while UCLA was seeded second. And those were quarterfinal games, mind you. So in case you're not putting 2 plus 2 together, USC and UCLA are facing each other in the Pac-12 Conference Tournament semifinals tonight at 7:30. And this is also being played at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. So hopefully for UCLA and USC, or for one of those two, they'll be able to hit the jackpot and win the Pac-12 tournament. That's the last time we'll be calling it that after the conference goes bye-bye. The other semifinal, for those that are curious, even though we don't care about those other teams in the Pac-12, is Stanford and Oregon State, which that should be a great matchup right there. I would not mind USC taking. For USC's sake, I would not mind either opponent, but I just think Oregon State is the lesser of the two evils. And who knows, maybe CBU will avoid playing Oregon State in the NCAA tournament because they are projected to face Oregon State if they somehow win the WAC tournament, which, if that's the case, cool. But if not, c'est la vie. So that is that for USC and UCLA women's hoops. It's going to be a great matchup. It's round 3 between those two. It's the rubber match, so I really think this is going to be a fun matchup. And then as for the West Coast Conference, or I'm sorry, not the West Coast Conference. Let's not talk about that. As for the Big West Conference, UC Irvine is basically finished second in the conference as they can't surpass Hawaii. Hawaii pretty much clinched at least to share the regular season title, and they have the number 1 seed in the Big West Conference tournament. Despite this, the top 8 teams are Hawaii, UC Irvine, UC Riverside, Cal Poly, UC Davis, UC Santa Barbara, and Long Beach State. I would mention UC San Diego. However, they're not eligible for the Big West Conference tournament just because Division II to Division I transition rule. So taking their spot would probably be Cal State Fullerton if, for some reason, Bakersfield doesn't beat Hawaii. And Fullerton also loses to UC Irvine, which could happen because they're playing at the Bren. But we'll see what happens. Also have to give a big shout-out to CSUN as they wound up beating UC San Diego last Saturday, 66-64. It's their first conference win of the season, their only conference win of the season, and they managed to snap a 27-game losing streak after they won their first 2 games. So, great job to see some women's hoops. I'm glad they did not finish winless in the Big West Conference and whatnot. They did, however, lose their final game of the regular season to Hawaii, 65-62. But they gave it their all. I don't know if it was Hawaii resting their starters, which I highly doubt, but CSUN gave it their all against Hawaii, and they have nothing to be ashamed of. So there's that right there. All right, but that is that for the Big West. Jumping over to the West Coast Conference. All right, the West Coast Conference tournament has begun on the women's side. San Diego lost their last regular season game to San Francisco, 68-66. But they beat Pepperdine yesterday, 79-64, which it's not really that big of an accomplishment. So I don't mean to say that in a negative way to San Diego, but it's not that great of an accomplishment. They're actually playing Pacific right now, and so far they are down 48-45 in the third quarter. You gotta step it up, Lady Toreros. And then LMU, unfortunately, fell to Portland in their final regular season game, losing 75-63, as LMU will have the dishonor, well, okay, I wouldn't say dishonor, but they have the honor of playing St. Mary's in the so-called second round of the West Coast Conference Tournament. So, there you have it right there in that regard, regarding LMU women's hoops. Like I said, the West Coast Conference in terms of San Diego, Pepperdine, and LMU are just absolutely dreadful. All 3 of those teams finished at the bottom of the West Coast Conference standings, and all 3 of them have losing records. Anyway, moving on to something a little bit more positive. We have San Diego State managing to edge out Wyoming 58-56 as they open up the Mountain West Conference tournament in the first round against San Jose State, which San Jose State was near the bottom. San Diego State finished 7th in the Mountain West Conference, which the champion, UNLV, basically wasn't even close to being challenged for the crown, but I digress. So San Diego State women's hoops play San Jose State. They have to win that one just because it's SoCal versus NorCal. If for some weird reason they lose that one, I'm basically giving them Dum-Dum of the Week. I don't care what anyone says, so there you have it. All right, but that's that for San Diego State women's hoops. And then obviously CBU women's hoops, they have clinched at least a share of the WAC title, and they have the number 1 seed, as Derryl Trujillo, my guest, mentioned. But they still have one more. They have one more game where they play Grand Canyon at Grand Canyon, and that's a tough place to win at. It's so easy to go undefeated at home, but on the road is a little bit tricky. So we'll see what the Lancers have in store for us. But I think everyone in SoCal is rooting for CBU women's hoops. And like I said, I really want to see CBU women's hoops get to the NCAA tournament. But time will tell in that regard. So we'll see. All right, but that is going to do it for everything college women's basketball. We still have some NHL to discuss as well. I actually do want to give this this Big W award out. And we'll start with the Ducks. Just because, well, the Ducks did something I wanted them to do this past week, and that was win on what was it, Teacher Appreciation Night or School Faculty Appreciation Night. Regardless, the Ducks managed to beat the New Jersey Devils last Friday 4-3, and in addition to that, they won when Larry B and his wife Cecilia were in attendance, and they got an Anaheim Ducks hat, and they got to shoot on the Anaheim Ducks ice of the Honda Center. So that is awesome right there. Thank you to the Ducks for, first and foremost, not losing. Second and foremost, showing Larry B and Cecilia B the time of their life. And thank you, Larry B and Cecilia B, for being a good luck charm for the Ducks. Because that's basically their Super Bowl right there. That's the Ducks Super Bowl right there, and it's Larry B's Super Bowl. So thank you, Anaheim Ducks, for not stinking. As for the rest of their games, Wednesday they managed to beat the Ottawa Senators 2-1, but on Sunday they lost to the Vancouver Canucks 2-1, which sucks, but it is what it is. And then, like I mentioned, they beat the New Jersey Devils 4-3, as tonight they host the Dallas Stars, and then the day after they host the New York Islanders. Tuesday they will hit the road to the Windy City to take on the Chicago Blackhawks, and then Thursday they hit the road to the Twin City to take on the Minnesota Wild. And the next Friday, the Ducks head down to Winnipeg to take on those Jets, the Winnipeg Jets. So the Ducks still stink. They're still pretty much on the low man of the totem pole regarding the Pacific Division, and it's terribly sad if you ask me. And they're still the third worst team in the league, ahead of San Jose and Chicago. So let's not talk about them anymore. No more talking about the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, yes, it was great that they wound up beating the New Jersey Devils, but let's just not talk about them and how they just stink. So over to the LA Kings. So the Kings, on the other hand, they had a little bit more success this past week, as yesterday they managed to beat the Ottawa Senators in overtime 4-3. But that was 2 nights ago. The 2 nights before they lost to the Vancouver Canucks in overtime 2-1. And then Sunday they managed to beat the New Jersey Devils 5-1. So the Kings are back in action Saturday when they host the Dallas Stars. And then Monday the Kings host the New York Islanders. Then Wednesday they play on national television as they hit the road to Stan Kroenke's former location to take on the St. Louis Blues. And then next Friday, the Kings head down to the Windy City to take on the Chicago Blackhawks. So looking at the LA Kings, they're third in the Pacific Division, as they should be just fine. They should not slip under Calgary, and they actually moved past the Vegas Golden Knights, which I think is pretty awesome. They're right under Edmonton with less than 3 points from them. And they're right ahead of Vegas by 2 points. By 2 points, yes. So there you have it right there with those two. And that's pretty much going to do it for the NHL. Not going to discuss a little MLB just because it's still, whatchamacallit. It's still spring training. And that's not ultimately that too big. But soon we will get some MLB talk, and we'll get more heartbreak regarding the Anaheim Angels just because they just can't do anything right. All right, but now we got to get on into the Dum Dum of the Week. So the Dum Dum of the Week is an award I give out to an organization or someone that does or says something dumb. No one is safe from this award, and I don't care what I wouldn't say anyone's going to get it. My family's not going to get it, and except for maybe my brother. My IE Sports Radio family isn't going to get it unless they do something really dumb. But honestly, no one is safe from this award. And the first person I got to give this award to is myself. So, first and foremost, I don't know if you know, but we have a Kansas City show, which is This is KC Sports with Bishop. It goes live every Monday at 1 p.m. primarily. So, obviously, I was listening in just because I didn't have much to do. I just got home from doing a press conference at Long Beach State. But right when I got home and right when I listened to Bishop's show, I said, I don't know, I'm pretty sure my math is pretty good. And I said, as long as I'm not doing the Pythagorean theorem, I should be fine. And I did not know this word unfortunately tripped up poor Bishop, and I felt so bad. It's like, oops. Yeah, unfortunately he could not pronounce that word. So I felt really horrible for tripping him up in that regard, and yeah, I didn't mean, first and foremost, I didn't mean for that to happen. Second of all, I don't think anyone wants to know what the Pythagorean theorem is. It's basically dividing a polynomial by a polynomial. And in this age, nobody in their right mind is going to need that sort of math to divide a polynomial by a polynomial in terms of technology or in this world. So that's not the end of my dumb-dumbness. So, in my regard to that same Monday, I did set point, but unfortunately for me, I put the wrong show episode number. I thought it was 235, but it was 236. So, I take great pride in basically doing set point, and I can't keep making those mistakes. So, unfortunately, I gotta give myself Dum Dum of the Week. I know it's not anything too big, but I will just say I gotta be more conscious of this, and this is why I basically copy and paste from the Spreaker website in our database and whatnot. So I will just say I get the first Dum Dum of the Week just because I tripped up Bishop by telling him the word Pythagorean theorem, and I also get Dum Dum of the Week because I don't know the episode number of Set Point, and that's my baby right there. So I can't keep forgetting that, but yeah, I'm Dum Dum of the Week number 1.
So dumb. You are real.
Wait. I gotta turn you up, my guy. Tell it to the people one more time.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Yeah, I gotta learn to be more conscious of that. I know I can edit that in regards to the episode number, but it's all good. But I do feel bad for tripping up Bishop in terms of putting Pythagorean theorem in the chat room. Like, he unfortunately could not pronounce that word, but it is what it is. And Patty Back says, oh my goodness, don't be so hard on yourself because you do an incredible job. You are a role model for us. Well, thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. And also, I got to give a shout to Patty Backs as she just celebrated her 100th episode of the Buffalo Huddle. I remember my 100th episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show and of Set Point. So here's to 100 more episodes of the Buffalo Huddle. So good job to you, Patty, and hope to tune into the Buffalo Huddle more. All right, but I want to say that's actually it for the Dum Dums of the Week. We haven't had too many dumb things happen, which I think is pretty darn funny, which is pretty darn interesting if you ask me, which, how am I supposed to have Dum Dum of the Week unless, of course, well, how am I supposed to have Dum Dum of the Week if there's no one else doing silly and dumb things? But there is kind of a Dum Dum of the Week that I kind of need to really get off my chest. And I wouldn't say it's this is based off of the decision, but so I don't know if y'all know this, but UC Irvine's men's volleyball team is a pretty darn good one. So here's the thing. UC Irvine's men's volleyball team had won 6 in a row, and they flew out to Hawaii for the Outrigger Invitational. And they had the honor of taking on number 1 Grand Canyon. Yes, we've been saying a lot of Grand Canyon. So UC Irvine obviously is in Southern California in the Irvine area of Orange County. So UC Irvine was able to upset, keep in mind UC Irvine is number 5 in the nation. They were able to upset number 1 Grand Canyon in 5 sets, which is awesome. But there's only one problem with that. No one was able to see the live stream match because there was no live stream. And that was so disappointing because some Hawaii fans were wondering, well, why is there no live stream? So I can't really bash Hawaii for this. I understand some circumstances, but at least get like a tripod and an old school camera. Like, come on now. Like, we're not going to be able to see a live stream of the number 5 team in the nation taking down the number 1 team in the nation. I'm a little disappointed by this. At least put it on ESPN Plus. Like, doesn't Hawaii have backup announcers and whatnot? Like, Jiminy Christmas, dude, that was so frustrating. And I had to tell this to one of my followers on Set Point. He says, where can I find a replay of the match? And I kind of told him, prepare to be disappointed. It wasn't televised. Or it wasn't streamed. It wasn't televised. So unfortunately, we can't watch a replay of UC Irvine beating Grand Canyon, the number 1 team in the nation. So I don't know who made the decision regarding Hawaii, but whoever made the decision of not having any sort of live stream, heck, I wouldn't have even minded if there was just overhead camera and we got to see little baby specks of the players. But regardless, whoever made the decision of no live stream for all the other matches that aren't regarding Hawaii, you are dumb of the week. I'm so mad, I'm so sad that we missed all of Grand Canyon losing to UC Irvine. Gosh dang it, y'all. I'm so mad. And now I got to make a goal that I need to go to Hawaii for the Outrigger Invitational. Because if this keeps up, I got to basically give the people what they want in regards to the teams that aren't being televised. Still, just put them on freaking ESPN Plus and whatnot, and heck, have students do it. I don't care what it takes, but Hawaii, University of Hawaii, or anyone in that production field, whoever said it was right to basically not have whoever said it was right to not have televised matches for the matches not involving Hawaii, you're dumb of the week.
You're so dumb. You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. I can't believe that. Number 1 versus number 5. Top 5 matchup, it was not televised. Shame on you, Spectrum Hawaii, or ESPN Plus, or University of Hawaii. I don't care who's at fault. They're dumb of the week. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to get on out of here, because I got me some plans over the weekend, or at least tonight. You dig? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen anytime, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Big thank you to Derryl Trujillo for being a guest on today's show, talking some CBU women's hoops. I really do appreciate it. Huge shout to the chat room, Patty Bax, Jen B, who is listening, but unfortunately she is driving, so there you have it. Mike, Pat, Larry B, Ralph Calise, they all popped in at some point. Thank you, Patty, for saying awesome show as always, Teran. I appreciate that, Patty. Next week, I should be able to do the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, but a fair warning, I'm going back to working at the grocery store, which makes me sad. But other than that, have yourself a great weekend. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Enjoy the SoCal sports action. Don't be dumb. Just don't forget to change your underwear, I guess. Don't forget to basically change your number in regards to anything. I will see you all on Monday for Set Point, and I guess I'll see you all tonight at Calvary Chapel High School for Vanguard versus Ottawa of Arizona. Have a great weekend, have a great day, and remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!